Well,
Yaakov, I thought for sure you'd be bombarded with shilas over there, 9 days shilas after Shabbos.
of course. What's the question?
They could wait another hour. Still the 9 days.
Yeah.
So Yaakov, if you make Havdalah on beer every week, you should change Badafka this week?
No. But maybe you should change.
Yaakov, somebody asked me in Shul today, his beer costs more than wine. Does that make a difference?
Not a cost thing.
It's called Chamar Medina, no?
Yeah, but the question is it Chamar Medina? That's the question.
It's Chamar Meperetz.
Correct.
Yaakov, your mother came to camp for Shabbos?
No, Mordechai is here. Mordechai and Yisrael are there. So.
By the way, Aaron, I got my Gemaras. I don't know. Apparently, I had it already for a while.
Okay. Maybe you got lucky, parents.
Unless it's an old one, and now I'm going to get two.
Everything's possible.
I think we lost the rabbi.
Oh, he's there.
I'm here. You here?
Yeah, we
lost me?
No, we got you.
Okay, we ready to roll?
Yeah, if we go fast, Gershon's not sitting by his Gemara, so the faster we go.
Okay.
That's never stopped me.
Why? Hold on 1 second. Hold on. Sorry.
I don't like when he puts on mute. We're probably missing out on the Geshmak Shaila.
Definitely. That's why we're muted.
Aaron, I got fresh beer for the Siyum.
Oh yeah, you ordered?
They just brewed it. I realized they're only open on Thursday, Friday, Shabbos, Sunday.
Oh, so it'll be fresh.
Well, Thursday, right? Thursday.
Right, I don't want you bringing out of that old beer. You got to bring fresh beer, parents.
Fresh, new. They just brewed it 2 days ago. I said, "Oh, this is new on the menu."
All right, let's go. Yeah.
Yet? How many 9 days
Das ist
shilas?
gewaltig. Auf allem Harke Gigas.
Very good. Okay, ready? I'm going to Shmuel by Yitzchak, yeah? It's about 10 lines, 10, 12 lines down from the bottom.
From the top.
From the top, I meant. Sorry, from the top. Yeah. Someone of Shmuel by Yitzchak. Halacha is the tzricha shetei machzekes roishe v'ruba v'shulchana. The halacha is that the sukkah needs to hold on. You need to have the minimum amount of room for the sukkah. Even though, by the way, this is really a sugya in 20 blot from now, 25 blot from now.
Yaakov, we did today the Mishnah on Chav Ches. It was a big help.
Yes, so it's really a sugya in Chav Ches. So I think we're going to really wait till Chav Ches to really get it. But the bottom line is, machlokes is whether you need the minimum amount of what the minimum amount of size of the sukkah is. The minimum amount of sukkah is to hold your head and the majority of the body and the table, which will be 7 tefachim by 7 tefachim and change. Who's that like? Beis Shamai. It's like Beis Shamai, right? I'm sorry, it's a question. Who are you saying it like Beis Shamai? Because it's machlokes Beis Shamai and Beis Hillel. Beis Shamai is the one that's machmer that you need the table. Beis Hillel says you don't need a table. Beis Shamai is the one that says you need the table. So I'm relay Ella Kaman. Who else? Yes, I'm passing like Beis Shamai, right? Which is a chiddush because normally we pass like Beis Hillel, not like Beis Shamai. Amri, another version of this. Amar Ravi Abba, Amar Lachmani. Rav Abba said, "Who told you that the halacha is like this?" Amar Le Beis Shamai. He said it's Beis Shamai. But life tells me now, don't move from that psak. Meaning, even though it's Beis Shamai, don't move from it. Meaning that's the way we pass it. Okay, so Maskal Rav Nachman Yitzchak. Who says that the machlokes Beis Shamai Beis Hillel is about whether the minimum amount of sukkah, meaning sukkah katana, meaning what is the smallest sukkah you could have? Dilma, The sukkah gedayla pligi. Maybe the whole machlokes is by a sukkah gedayla. Meaning, and then what would be machlokes? Going to Yosef Apuma de Matulsa, where it's a large sukkah and you're sitting at the mouth of the door. The shulchana b'soicha Bais, and your table's inside the house. Meaning, so you're sitting on the edge of the sukkah, right? And your table's inside the house. Are you allowed to do that or not? The Beis Shamai sabri because right? Everybody likes to go after their food. So if you're going to keep, even though you're sitting in the sukkah, Beis Shamai says if your table is not also in the sukkah, we're afraid you're going to bend over to eat, and you're going to end up pushing the table inside. You end up sitting inside the sukkah. Basila says no problem. Right? As long as you're sitting in the sukkah, we're not making a gzeira if your table's not in the sukkah. So maybe that's the machlokes Beis Shamai and not over the basic amount. The economy. Let's be medayik this too. The Ketani, Misha Yeroi Sheberu v'Sukkah v'Shulchan v'Zechavayis. If somebody's head and majority is in the sukkah, and his shulchan is b'Zechavayis, Beis Shamai poison v'Zil machshira. Beis Shamai says puzzle, and Beis Hillel says kosher. V'im isa machsekes v'eina machsekes v'boile. And if that's true, then holding on and not holding on, it needs to be. It should have said not that it's puzzle or kosher because the sukkah is kosher. Right? Just don't sit on the edge of the sukkah. Right? Again, if you're talking about the minimum amount of a sukkah, so then that's puzzle or kosher. But if you're talking about on the edge of the sukkah, then it's not. The sukkah is kosher. It's just a matter of whether the way you're sitting in it is kosher. So then just say it's a change of terminology. The Gemara continues as beduik like that too. The Ketani, yeah. I'm sorry, I just read that. Let's read it again. But they can have the Ketani Misha Yerosh Sukkah v'Shulchan v'Zechavayis. Beis Shamai poison is a little machshin. Vim isa machsekes ve'ena machsekes miboile. It shouldn't say puzzle kosher. It should say that does it hold the machsekes, meaning is it a chazaka? Does it hold the kashrus of the sukkah or not? The sukkah katana loy pligin. The Gemara says ena. So what do you want to say? So the machlokes is whether you have the whole whether you need the table in the sukkah or not. Someone says sukkah tani loy pligi, and the melee there's no machlokes whether the minimum amount of the small sukkah is no argument. But tani machsekes rosh v'ruba shulchan kshera. If it holds the head and the majority in the table, it's kosher. Rebbe Yomer ad sheyeba arba amos al arba amos. And Rebbe says until it has 4 amos and 4 amos. Tani idach. We have another brisa. Rebbe Yomer kol sukkah she'ein bam arba amos al arba amos psula. Any sukkah that doesn't have 4 amos and 4 amos is possible. Even if it only holds Rosh Beruva, it's kosher. I'd vilu shulchan like a tani, but it doesn't say anything about a table. So Gemara says kashi nadadi. It's a stira. What's the story here? Right? Is it a machlokes about this minimum amount of a sukkah, or is it a machlokes whether you have to have your table in the sukkah also? Elalav. So what must it be? Shmami no ha Beis Shamai ha Beis Hillel. One must be Beis Shamai. One must be Beis Hillel. Right? Some Marzuchim Masnisa Namideka, and the Mishnah also sounds like that. The Ketani Beis Shamai poison v'Sulim Machshirin. Beis Shamai says puzzle. Beis Hillel says kosher. Vim Isa Beis Shamai lo yatsa. Beis Hillel lo yatsa v'ayile. Right? So then, and if that's true, then it should say Beis Shamai you're not yatsa. Again, because the sukkah is kosher sukkah, just you're sitting in it incorrectly because your table's not in it. So Beis Shamai la yatsa v'Hillel oimrim yatsa mibayile. Yeah.
But there's no chiyuv to eat any, unless you're saying the mandamo says you chayiv to eat sudas every day. Otherwise, you're not chayiv to eat. So what do I need a table for? I need a bed because I'm chayiv. It's also the sleep chutz sukkah. So I need enough room to hold a bed, not a table.
No, but the point is, when you decide to eat a meal, are you eating it properly or not? Right? When you decide to eat the meal, are you eating it properly? Right?
Okay.
If you're right. If you're not, then it's that meaning if the table's not in there, then you're not even eating in a sukkah.
When you're sleeping, it would be.
What are you saying?
So same thing with a bed. When you're sleeping,
yeah, in
the bed. Depends what you're doing.
Right. So now if you're going to say that the machlokes is Beis Shamai and Beis Hillel is about the minimum amount of sukkah, then the terminology mishahaya is a kasha. Because what is mishahaya? If somebody was sitting in a sukkah and his table wasn't in the sukkah, that sounds like if the whole shaila is in the sukkah, right? Whether the sukkah is kosher or not, that's not mishahaya sitting in the sukkah. Mishahaya sitting in the sukkah, right? Mishahaya the sukkah sounds like the sukkah is kosher. The only matter is he sitting in there properly because his table's not in there. Sayamara says, really, they're having two disagreements. They're arguing about what a sukkah katana is, meaning what's the minimum amount of a sukkah, and they're also arguing about a sukkah gadayla. And there's something missing from the Bais, and this is what it's supposed to say. If somebody was sitting in the sukkah and his head and the majority of his body was in the sukkah, and his tail was in the Bais, Beis Shamai says he was not yotze. Beis Hillel says he was yotze. And if it's not holding only Roishay Berubai, Beis Shamai Poislin, Beis Hillel Machshirin. So Beis Shamai says possible, Beis Hillel says kosher. So basically, Maskonas Advarim is fairly straightforward. It gets a little complicated in the middle, but the bottom line is there's two machlokes between Beis Shamai and Beis Hillel. The minimum amount of a sukkah, where Beis Shamai says it has to be the head, it has to hold your head, the majority of your body, and your table. And Beis Hillel says it just has to be your head and the majority of the table. And that's the minimum amount of sukkah. They also argue on a regular size sukkah, whether you're allowed to sit on the edge of the sukkah and have your table not in the sukkah. Where Beis Shamai says that your table has to be in the sukkah because we're afraid you could end up moving out of the sukkah. And Beis Hillel says, no, your table does not have to be out of the sukkah. Fine. Now the Gemara goes off for the rest of the daf and then on to Amud Bais, all different dinim about the minimum size of a house. The minimum size of a house, the Gemara is going to end up saying, is 4 Amos by 4 Amos, and it's go through all sorts of examples of when it will not have the status of a house if it's less than 4 Amos by 4 Amos. Yeah, Mantana and 4 Amos by 4 Amos is basically 6 feet by 6 feet. So Mantana, the Tana Rabbanon, who's the Tana that the Rabbanon learned by Arba Amos al Arba Amos? If you have a house that's not 4 Amos by 4 Amos, Potem and a mezuzah, does not need a mezuzah, right? That's very applicable to a walk-in closet, right? The shaila gets asked all the time, does a walk-in closet need a mezuzah? So the question is it 4 Amos by 4 Amos, which is not that large, 6 feet by 6 feet. The question becomes, let's say you have built-in shelves. Does that take away from the 4 Amos by 4 Amos or not? So the basic way the place can say it is that if it's removable shelves, then that gets counted. That area gets counted in the 4 Amos and 4 Amos. If the shelves are built into the wall and the hanging rods and all that stuff is built into the wall, then you need 4 Amos by 4 Amos besides for the built-in shelves.
What about a
right?
shed?
Shed?
Yeah.
Shed also. A shed, if it has built-in walls, then it wouldn't count. Right? Then it wouldn't count. Yeah. So anyway, something that's
why does it say bias, not room?
A room is considered a bias. Every room. That's a good question. Every room is considered a bias.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, the Mishnah Brura says that when it says the Gemara says you shouldn't sleep in a house alone, right? So a person shouldn't sleep in a house alone. Mishnah Brura says that means a room. It says that means a bedroom. One should not sleep in a bedroom alone. Oh, everybody does it. That's a kasha from the Ma'aseh. Why we don't do it?
Yeah, we had this in the Monday night share in Bayswater.
Correct. Right. Very good. And the basic reason we say is that when there are lights, then it's fine to sleep in a house alone. Okay. Anyways, so Gemara says, so anything less than 4 by 4 does not get a mezuzah, umina maika. Let's say the house that you have is less than 4 by 4 and it's a flat roof that you may use. You're not allowed to have, if anything's accessible on a roof, you have to have a fence because somebody may fall off.
So you can't fall off you can't fall less than 4 by 4? Still dangerous.
It's just not meant to be used, so you're not responsible. Since it's less than 4 by 4, nobody's expected to use it and then fall off. Right? We don't have to be worried about somebody doing something crazy. It has to, if it's a normal usage, then we have to worry about it. We know that houses can also get tsaras. If a house gets a tsaras, then you got to knock it down if it meets all the requirements. If it's less than 4 by 4, it doesn't have a din of a house. does not have a tsaras issue. And it doesn't nechlat is a lashon of finality in the batei harechaima in a house in a walled city. The halacha, we had this thing in Sanhedrin that a house in a walled city comes with a 1 year, no questions asked, money back guarantee. Right? Did I say that well? Like I said, I could be a salesman, right? 1 year, no questions asked, money back guarantee on walled city houses. But if it's less than 4x4,
Like
then
you're getting people
it
out of
doesn't apply.
timeshares.
What?
You sound like you're getting people out of their timeshares.
Right, very good. Very good. Right. So if that timeshare is less than 4x4, then you don't have that guarantee because it's not considered a house.
It applies today?
What do you say?
It applies today?
No, only Batei Harechaima. I mean, in Yerushalayim?
Yerushalayim, Old City.
I don't think it applies nowadays because we don't have Yovel. Yeah.
You don't have it?
I think that's why. I think it's totally in Yovel also. Fine. We know that the halacha is that somebody who just gets newly married and somebody who just bought a house doesn't go out to war. Right? So if you have a new house, but it's less than 4x4, that's not considered a legitimate house, and you do have to go out to war. Yeah. And if it's part of an Eruv, he does not have to, he does not have to be part of the Eruv. And the same thing, Shtufei Mavuos, which we discussed on Amud Aleph, which is that the streets also need to make an Eruv, right? Meaning things inside a chutzner, right? Multiple houses in a yard have to make an Eruv, and then multiple yards to a street also have to make an Eruv. So any house less than 4x4 does not get involved with that. And you can't put the Eruv there either, meaning when you make an Eruv with Chatzeres, the challah, the matzah, whatever you use has to be put in somewhere in the house. So if you cannot put it into a house that's less than 4x4, on Talmud Bais, right? Let's say you have two cities, right? And two separate cities, and you want to combine them so that you have one big Eruv Tchum and you don't have to worry about Tchum issues. So if there's a house between the two cities, as long as there's a house within 70 Amos of each city, then you're going to be okay.
I posted some good pictures. How's it there?
Oh, yeah. Okay, good. Thank you. So as long as there's a house in between the two cities and there's no 70 Amos in between that little house and the cities, then that house will combine the two cities. But if that house is less than 4x4, then it's not going to combine the two cities. It's not considered a house. Yeah, what are you saying?
A shed or a house?
It has to be a house, something that you meant for humans to live in, which we'll get to later exactly what that means, right? And then the last thing.
Didn't we have this with the Kohen Gadol or something when they were running around the what's it called?
In the Erev.
Yeah. Yeah, so and brothers and partners, business partners, don't split it. Yeah, meaning when let's say somebody's living in a 4x4 apartment or less than 4x4 house, and you yarshined it from a father, or you decided to split the business, anything less than 4x4 does not have to be split. It's not considered anything substantial enough. Whatever it is, the Brisa clearly says that the minimum amount for a house is 4x4, right? So the Gemara says, "Lema Rebbe," maybe that's going like Rebbe, who says the sukkah is 4x4, but lo Rabbanon, it's not Rabbanon, right? And because the Rabbanon had said that it doesn't have to do with 4x4. So Gemara says, no, afilu tema Rabbanon. You could even say this Brisa with 4x4 is going according to Rabbanon. Maybe the Rabbanon over there said by sukkah that's a dira sarai. So therefore, anything less than 4x4 is still okay because temporarily you could live in something less than 4x4. I will be based bias, but for a house, a legitimate house, the dira's kevahu, that's a dira that's meant to be lived in for long term. I feel the Rabbanon might do. Even the Rabbanon agreed that he is by dalaramas, not dalaramas, diary by inchi. If there's 4 amas and 4 amas, a person could potentially live there. And if it's not, it doesn't have 4 amas by 4 amas, then nobody will live in it. So again, the Gemara, we had this similar on Daf Bais, that if it's temporary dwelling, you could live in it if it's 4 by 4. If it's not a temporary dwelling, if it's a permanent dwelling, then less than 4 by 4 is nobody's going to buy a house or live in there. It's less than 4 by 4. I just wonder nowadays, they have these sleep pods that people rent out. It's less than 4 by 4. Right, in airports, I think China has it more. You can rent it for a bunch of hours and you can go to sleep in there. But I guess that's all right. Nobody's doing that. I don't think anybody's doing that on a permanent basis. All right, fine. So Amar Mar, Potter min mezuzah min ma'ika. It's potter from a mezuzah and ma'ika. Right, from the ma'ika is the fence on top of the roof. It doesn't become Tommy from Tzaras, it doesn't have the money back guarantee for a walled city, and it does not go back from it, meaning somebody who's supposed to go out to war, if it has a house less than 4 by 4, then it's not considered a house. My timer. So all these cases it says bias. The bias it says bias. Anything less than 4 amas and 4 amas does not have a din of a house. Then okay, so that's that reason. It does not get involved in any eruvin. If it's less than 4 by 4, my time anything less than 4 by 4 is not right to live in. If it's not right to live in, it cannot aser you out the eruv. So if there's a guy in the eruv who doesn't want to use that, who doesn't agree to the eruv, but he lives in something 4 by 4, it's not a problem because it's not considered a dira. Eruv chatzeres ein manichin boy, avol shituf manichin boy. But an eruv chatzeres you could put in there. Let's say that he is part of the eruv, and you included him in the eruv, even though you didn't have to. Can you leave all the matzah, right? Because again, with an eruv, everybody has to give in some bread, right? In Farakwe, we do it on behalf of everybody. There's a maximum. The maximum is 18 groigers, which is a box of matzahs. They do it on behalf of everybody, and I think it's kept in the aguda. But for smaller crowds, so everybody has to give a little matzah. So, and you can leave that matzah in this house less than 4 by 4. In the chatzeres, you're not allowed to. I'm sorry. Beruva chatzeres, you're not allowed to. But shtufe mevuos, which is again to do this to the street, you're allowed to. My timer. So we say the loigara michatzer shemamavu. It's not any worse than a chatzer in a mavu, meaning the yard in a mavu. You're allowed to keep this matzah and challah in somebody's yard in a mavu. The Tanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, eruv chatzeres b'chatzer. Right? Eruva chatzeres, you put in the chatzer. Shtufe mavoi b'mavoi, and you're allowed to put the shtufe mavoi b'mavoi. Bavinamba, and we were wondering, Eruva chatzeres b'chatzer, you're allowed to put the eruv chatzeres b'chatzer? But Tanana knows in Eruva b'beis shar, if you put an eruv in a beis shar, I don't know if the other remembers there's some eruv in. Beis shar is like a gatehouse. Achsadra, if you put it into a portico. We haven't had that in a while. Peset, in a porch. Einay eruv, it's not an eruv. Darsham einay oisib, and somebody who lives in a beis shar, in a gatehouse or in a portico, it's not considered a regular place to live. He will not make you in usher. He will not make the eruv usher. So basically, in these places, it's not considered livable. So how could you go put the eruv in the chatzah? Eruv chatzeres you can put into a house that's in a chatzah. And shtufe mevuos you could put into a yard that's in a mavoi. In a house that's less than 4 by 4 is not worse than a yard, right? Nobody lives in a yard, right? We're saying that a shtufe mevuos, for whatever reason, can be put into a yard. So if it can be put into a yard, it certainly can be put into a house. Fine. Then what's the other case? If you want to combine 2 cities, then you cannot use a house less than 4 by 4 to combine 2 cities. It's not even considered like huts. Now, this is what you're referring to with the burgenin, right? That in order to get the kohen to bring the goat, send them off the cliff, they made these huts every once in a while. Every 2,000 amos, they made huts that wouldn't be out of the tchum. So the question's going to be, if a hut can extend a city, so why shouldn't a house that's less than 4 by 4 amos? That's definitely more permanent than a hut, and a hut can extend the city. Meaning, and I have this shiloh, like people ask me why I don't do this, because I'm 2 miles from, in the camp that I'm in is 2 miles from my mother's house, Right, so it's a little bit out of the Eruv. So people said, why don't you put up huts every 70 Amos and you'll extend the city, which it's a big headache. So I'm not going to do that. Right, but the Gemara is asking, well, if a hut can extend the city, so a house that's less than 4 Amos by 4 Amos should be able to extend the city. Right, if anything, it's better. So the Gemara says, has a very interesting explanation. My time of Burgan and Chazal and Masayu.
There are houses between the camp and your mother.
Yeah, but they're too far away. They're too far away from each other. They're more than 70 Amos away from each other. So it doesn't extend it. So anyways, so we're saying Burganin, which is huts, they do what they're supposed to do. A hut is meant for hunters or watchmen. It's a hut. Nobody expects you to live in there permanently. You go out there for a few hours a day, whatever you need to do. But it does its function. But a house is not right for what it's meant to do. Right? Meaning if somebody's looking to buy a hut, you show them a hut, he says, oh, it's very nice. Even though it's less than 4 by 4, it does the job. You go try and sell somebody a house and it's less than 4 by 4, he says, this is not a house. And so therefore, it will not extend the Eruv. A hut will, a house will not. If it's less than 4 by 4. Fine. Then what's the last thing? Brothers and partners are not required to split it, meaning one of them could take it. Who gets it, that's a different story, but they're not mechuyev to split it. So Gemara says, time that's the reason why they don't have to split it, is because there's no 4 Amos. But if there's 4 Amos, then they have to split it. Yeah. So Vatran, we learned in the Mishnah in Cholkin. As a chotzer, the Mishnah says that it doesn't have to be 4 Amos total. It has to have a total of 8 Amos, where when you split it, each one gets 4 Amos. Not that each one's going to get 2 Amos. The Gemara is thinking that you don't split a house less than 4 by 4. Right? You don't split a house less than 4 by 4, and then each one gets 2 Amos. This Mishnah clearly says that the 4 Amos has to be the final result. After you split it, each one gets 4 Amos. Okay, so now the Gemara changes what the pshat is. Ela Ema, so the Gemara is saying yes. In the end, the Gemara is saying yes. Each one has to get 4 Amos. Ela Ema, what it must have been, Ein by din chaluka. It does not have a din chaluka like a yard. For what? Damar Rav Huna has a fascinating shita. Damar Rav Huna, chatzer lefip sochem eschalekes. When you're splitting up a yard between let's say two people inheriting, the chatzer got split up according to the houses. Meaning, let's say there's one big house in the chatzer and 3 small houses. Right? So let's say one guy says, you know what, your big house has 100 square feet, and each one of those 3 houses has 33 square feet. So therefore, that's an equal split. You take 3 houses, and I'll take 1 house. Right? Fine. So they could do that. But what's with the yard? How do you split up the yard? Do you split up the yard by doors? Meaning the guy who has 3 doors gets 75% of the yard because he has 3 out of 4 doors. Or do you say, no, you split the yard equally? So Rav Huna says you split the yard based on the doors. You split the chatzar according to its doors. You give to each doorway 4 Amos, meaning each doorway gets its 4 Amos in front of it, so it has room to go in. So the guy that has the 3 small houses will end up with 4 Amos per door. And the other guy who owns 1 house, who gets 1 house, he only gets the 4 Amos in front, and the rest of the yard gets split. Rav Huna, again, the first shita, says no. The first guy gets, the 3 house guy gets 75% of the yard because he has 75% of the doors. And the other guy only gets 25%. Very difficult to understand where Rav Huna is coming from. But Rav Chisda says no, each one gets, because you need room outside your front door. So granted, the guy will get 4 Amos in front of each door, but the rest of the yard you split equally.
Why don't we go by value? Value.
By value.
Yeah.
That could be. It could be you do that. You do have to. That could be. Could be you do have to split it by value. But the question is, how much is each one entitled to?
Wait a minute. The house is worth a lot more than the 3 bungalows.
No, you split the houses and the yards differently. That they're entitled to split however they want. But the question is the yard. Does the yard go with the houses or not?
Let's evaluate it. No.
So that could be. That could be. But we're just saying the the guy, usually when you have a house, you're entitled to some yard. Yeah. So the Gemara says, "Dahani mili bias the heavy koyehivnale," right? That's talking about for a house that it's gonna stay. So Yehivna, I'm sorry, I did a run on Dahani mili bias the mahavi koy. A bias that's bigger than 4x4 is going to be permanent. So Yehivnale chotzer. Therefore, you give it a chotzer. Hi, the lemistar koy, a bias that's less than 4 amas or 4 amas is going to be knocked down. Lo yavinale chotzer. We don't include it as a chotzer. Meaning, even though we'll let somebody take one of the houses, if it's 4 amas or 4 amas, he is not going to be entitled to the 4 amas that go in front of it because it's not considered a house. Meaning, so again, this whole machlokes with how you split a yard, whether you go with the doors or you go with just splitting the yard, is not going to apply if one of the houses is less than 4x4. Because that house that's less than 4x4 is not going to last, and it's going to be what do you call it? It's going to be no good. It's going to be knocked down. So therefore, it's not included. Okay, that's it for tonight. A good tvach and a good yar.
What time is your during the week? 8:45.
8:40. Usually 8:45. We post on the chat if it changes, but usually 8:40. In the summer, 8:45.
Anybody know of an aide I can hire to stay over in South Nassau Hospital? Anybody have any aides or company? Yeah.
I don't know.
All right. Worth a shot.
How long is he going to stay there for, Paris?
Who's there?
Oh no. I think he spiked a fever, so.
Who's there? Parrot